tonight on First at 9, this Tuesday the 22nd of October 2024. Rejected. Sri Lanka's Catholic Church rejects special committee reports on Easter attacks. Ravi Senaviratne and Shani Abesekara will not be removed from their current positions, affirms cabinet spokesperson.
ගම්මන්පිල්ල ටෝනිකම තියෙන්නේ සානි විජේසේකරයි රවි සෙනවිරත්න මහත්තයා මෙතන ඉවත් කරන්න. නෑ අපි ඒක කරන්නේ.
Continuity of reforms. Sri Lanka's commitment to reforms continuity and adherence to IMF framework amid government change has paid off, says IMF chief Kristalina Georgieva.
To make life better.
Cultural shift. President instructs governors to submit proposals to rationalize provincial council mechanism, while focusing on establishing a new political culture. Development priorities. Eastern Container Terminal Project declared a special project. $30 million loan to be obtained from the ADB for the Moragolle hydroelectric project.
ඔබේ විශ්වාසය දෙනු සෙන්සොඩයින් දැන් ළඟමැති ෆාමසියෙන් ලබාගත හැක.
වැඩිම මනාපෙන් ජනතා තේරීම මෙවරත්.
සුදේශී ඔරිජිනල් කුහුඹම තමයි.
Crunchy goodness for hunger on the go.
From Derana, this is Derana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to Sri Lanka's premier primetime English news bulletin, Derana First at 9. I'm Tarindu Mahendra, joining you live with the latest in Sri Lanka and from around the world. In your top story this evening, government rejected the reports on the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks revealed by Pivituru Helarume leader Uday Gammampila, claiming the relevant commissions were appointed by the previous administration with the intent of seeking political revenge. Cabinet spokesperson Minister Vijitha Herath affirmed that Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security Ravi Senaviratne and the Director of the Criminal Intelligence Analysis Bureau SSP Shani Abesekara will not be removed from their positions despite accusations against them.
Pivituru Helarume leader, former parliamentarian Uday Gammampila, yesterday revealed two unreleased reports on the 2019 Easter Sunday terror attacks. The two reports were compiled by two committees appointed by the previous government. One of the committees was chaired by retired Supreme Court Justice S.I. Imam, while the other was led by retired High Court Judge A.N.J.D. Alvis. Gammampila highlighted that the Alvis Committee report recommends criminal charges be filed against the Secretary to the Ministry of Public Security, Ravi Senaviratne, and the Director of the Criminal Intelligence Analysis Bureau, SSP Shani Abesekara, over their alleged neglect of intelligence reports pertinent to the attacks. During the cabinet briefing today, Cabinet spokesperson Minister Vijitha Herath was queried on this regard.
පාස්කු ප්‍රහාරයට කලින් වනාතවිල්ලුවේ පුපුරන ද්‍රව්‍ය සම්බන්ධයෙන් CID සොයා ගැනීම කරද්දී CID ජ්‍යෙෂ්ඨ නියෝජ්‍ය පොලිස්පති වෙන්නේ රවි සෙනවිරත්න, අධ්‍යක්ෂක වෙන්නේ ශානි අබේසේකර. මෙතනදී සහරාන් හෂීම් ගැන නිශ්චිත වශයෙන්ම අනාවරණයක් වෙනවා. එහෙම තියෙද්දි තමයි විදේශ බුද්ධ්‍යංශයකින් ලද තොරතුර අප්‍රේල් මාසයේ 16 වෙනිදා CIDට ලැබෙන්නේ රවි සෙනවිරත්න ඒක විවෘත කරලා බලන්නේ. ඔය වගේ සන්දර්භයක් ඇතුලේ රවි සෙනවිරත්නට සහ ශානි අබේසේකරට නීති විරෝධී නොකර හැරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් චෝදනා ගොනු කරන්න බැයිද?
දැන් මේ ගම්මන්පිල මහත්තයා දන්නේ මේ කමිටුවට පත් කරලා ඉන්නේ කවුද කියන්නේ. මේකේ සභාපති කෑගල්ලේ හිටපු මහාධිකරණ වෙනසුරු AN ජයකිද අල්විස් මහත්මිය.
Uday Gammampila is unaware of who was appointed to this committee. The chairperson of this committee is retired Kegol High Court Judge A.N.J.D. Alvis. Judge D. Alvis was dismissed from service after 2 years as a magistrate due to charges of misconduct. Despite this, she was appointed as the chair of this committee by the former president. She is the one who presented this immediate report. The clear targets of this report are Ravi Senaviratne and Shani Abesekara. Prior to this, there was a human rights violation case filed before the Supreme Court. The verdict of that case was delivered, and while Ravi Senaviratne's name was mentioned, Shani Abesekara's name was not. The verdict delivered by a 7-member bench of judges stated that Ravi Senaviratne was not guilty of any of the accusations. This report was presented against that backdrop, and therefore we cannot accept the findings of a committee appointed by former President Ranil Wickremesinghe with the apparent intention of seeking revenge.
මේ දේශපාලන පරිගැනීම ඉලක්ක කරගෙන පිහිටවපු කමිටුව අපි පිළිගන්නේ පිළිගන්නේ නැහැ.
වනාත විල්ලුවේ පුපුරන ද්‍රව්‍ය කඳවුර සොයා ගැනීමෙන් පස්සේ ඒ වෙද්දී CID එකේ ප්‍රධානීන් දෙන්න වෙලා හිටපු රවි සෙනවිරත්න සහ ශානි අබේසේකර සාරාන් ගැන දැනුවත් වීමක් තිබ්බා. එතනින් එහාට තමයි අප්‍රේල් මාසේ 16 වෙනිදා විදේශ බුද්ධ්‍යංශයකින් සාරාන් ගැන සඳහන් කළා තොරතුරක් එන්නේ. මේ සම්බන්ධයෙන් නීති විරෝධී නොකර ඇරීම සම්බන්ධයෙන් චෝදනා ගොනු කරන්න පුළුවන්ද බැයිද?
ඒ සියලුම කරුණු ශ්‍රේෂ්ඨාධිකරණයේ නඩු විභාගයට ලක් වුණා.
All these facts were considered during the hearing in the Supreme Court and the Special Presidential Commissions of Inquiry. Both individuals were questioned on these allegations and no recommendations were made regarding them. Gamampila wants these two officials removed from their current positions, but we will not do so. The committee exists only to gather information for the president. It does not have any legal powers.
ජනාධිපතිවරයාට තොරතුරු දැනගන්න තමයි ඉතින් මේකේ තියෙන්නේ. එහෙම නැත්නම් මේකට නෛතික බලයක් නැහැ.
ජයිකදල්විස් වාර්තාව හිටපු ජනාධිපති රනිල් වික්‍රමසිංහ මැතිතුමාට බාර දීලා තියෙන්නේ මේ කමිටුව විසින් පෞද්ගලිකවද එහෙම නැත්නම් ජනාධිපති ලේකම් කාර්යාලයට ඒක බාර දීලා තියෙන්නේ යම්කිසි නිශ්චිත ක්‍රමවේදයක් යටතේ.
වාර්තාව බාර දීලා තියෙන්නේ.
The report was handed over to the former president at his residence on Flower Road without any media publicity on September 17th. It has since been reported that the reports were handed over to the presidential secretariat on September 18th.
වෙනද ලැබුණ බවට වාර්තා තියෙනවා.
එතකොට ඔබතුමාලා ආරම්භ කළ තියෙන අලුත් පරීක්ෂණයේ නෛතික බලය කුමක්ද?
දැනට අපි ඇත්තටම කරන්නේ විමර්ශන.
What we are currently doing is conducting an investigation. Following the investigation, we will take the necessary legal measures through a presidential commission which holds legal authority.
කොමිෂන් සභාවකින් මේ තීරණය කරනවා.
අපි දැක්ක උද්දේගම්මන්වල හිරු පාර්ලිමේන්තු මන්ත්‍රීතුමා අත්අඩංගුවට ගැනීමේ කටයුත්තක් සිදු කරන්න නියමිතයි කියලා ආරංචි මාර්ග කියනවා.
අපි එහෙම එකක් කිව්වෙත් නැහැ. එහෙම එකක් සිදු වෙලත් නැහැ. මම අර කිව්වේ අවධානය දිනා ගන්න සමහර ඒවා කියනවා කියලා. ඒ නිසා එහෙම දෙයක් නැහැ.
Horizon Campus 2024 Intake 2. Register now.
පිරිපුන් ජීවිතයකට ඔබ සමගින් පෙරට Union Assurance.
Welcome to Cinnamon Life, South Asia's biggest entertainment hub, where awe awaits.
කාගෙත් ප්‍රියතම මෙලිබන් බිස්කට් දැන් 130ක් සීනි අඩුවෙන් රස දන්න කාටත්
හරිෂෝ
Sadaharita Plantations Limited, celebrating 22 years of your trust.
In response to the revelations made by Pivituru Hellorume leader Uday Gammampila, Director of Communications for the Archdiocese of Colombo, Reverend Father Cyril Gamini Fernando says the Sri Lankan Catholic Church rejects the reports of the Committee of Inquiry headed by retired High Court Judge A.N.G.D. Alvis, claiming that the report cannot be regarded as impartial or independent. Meanwhile, speaking to media, Archbishop of Colombo, His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, expressed his confidence that President Anura Dissanayake would launch a fresh, unbiased investigation into the Easter attacks.
ජනාධිපති විශේෂ විමර්ශන කොමිෂන් සභාව ඉදිරිපත් කර තිබූ එකම නිර්දේශයක්වත්
We suspect that the former president, who had no intention of implementing any of the recommendations in the report of the Special Presidential Commission of Inquiry, established two other committees with the sole intent of seeking political revenge against both Ravi Seniratne and Shani Abesekara. The ANJD Alvis committee completed all investigations within 3 months. Therefore, we cannot accept a report from a committee chaired by such a person as an unbiased and independent document. After considering all the facts, we do not accept this report and reject it. Furthermore, we and the public also suspect that Uday Gammampila is attempting to protect criminals, especially given that the current government has commenced investigations into the Easter Sunday attack and other political murders.
බිහිතියට පත්ව ඇති අපරාධකරුවන් ආරක්ෂා කිරීම සඳහා එම පරීක්ෂණ කඩාකප්පල් කිරීමේ කොන්ත්‍රාත්තුවක් උදය ගම්මන්පිල මහත්මයා විසින් සිදු කරන්නේද යන සැකය අප තුළ මෙන්ම මේ රටේ බුද්ධිමත් පොදු මහ ජනතාව තුළද ඇති වෙන බව අපි දන්නවා.
ඔබ වහන්සේ මේ කමිටු වාර්තා දෙක හන්දගෙනින් මේ ජනතාවට මේ ගැන කියන්නේ නැතුව මේ වංචාවක් කරා කියලා.
පළවෙනි එක එරුවේ
The first report was sent on September 18, 2024 and I was informed that it was confidential.
ලිපියකින් සඳහන් කරලා තිබුණා.
විශේෂයෙන් ශානි අබේසේකර සහ රවි සෙනවිරත්න මේ නිලධාරීන් විසින් පාස්කු ප්‍රහාර සම්බන්ධයෙන් මේ විමර්ශනය හරියට කරයි කියලා විශ්වාසය වහන්සේලාට කියනවා.
අපි මේ සම්බන්ධව කතා බහ කරන්නේ
We are not discussing this with Ravi Seniratne or Shani Abesekara. We made this request to the President, who promised to initiate an independent investigation into the matter.
තුමා අපිට පොරොන්දු වුණා මේ සම්බන්ධ ස්වාධීන විමර්ශනයක් ආරම්භ කරනවා කියලා.
මෙතෙක් පැවති වාර්තාවලින් ඔබ වහන්සේලා පිළිගන්න වාර්තාවල් මොනවද?
We accept the report of the Special Presidential Commission of Inquiry. However, they also mentioned that they did not have enough time to thoroughly investigate several matters.
ඒගොල්ලන්ට කල් මදි වුණා කියලා සමහර දේවල් ගැඹුරින් අධ්‍යයනය කරන්නට.
Government has declared the Eastern Container Terminal project of the Colombo South Development Project a special project. Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers also gave the green light to obtain a $30 million loan from the Asian Development Bank with the aim of completing the construction of the Moragula hydroelectric project. The Cabinet of Ministers has decided to declare the Eastern Container Terminal project as a special project. The Eastern Container Terminal of the Colombo South Development Project is being developed in stages under the full ownership of the Sri Lanka Ports Authority. The contract for civil work and the procurement for the purchase of cranes has already been awarded. Additionally, various tax concessions have been granted to the private terminal operators and service providers under the Strategic Development Projects Act and the Board of Investment Act. Cabinet approval was also granted to obtain a loan of $30 million from the Asian Development Bank to complete the construction of the Moragula hydroelectric power project. The ADB is providing the loan under a small cost financial facility and the funds will be directly obtained by the Ceylon Electricity Board in 2 installments. Meanwhile, the Cabinet of Ministers has appointed HCDL Silva as a Deputy Secretary of the Treasury. Silva is currently serving as the Director General of the Department of Treasury Operations. Director General of the Department of External Resources DAP Abesekara will also be appointed as a Deputy Secretary of the Treasury from November onwards. Meanwhile, Additional Director General of the Department of Public Finance AN Hapugala is appointed Director General of the Department of Public Finance. NSMP Ranjit, currently serving as Acting Director General of the Department of Project Management and Monitoring, is appointed to the post of Director General of the same department. Additional Director General of the Department of National Planning JMSD Ratnayaka is appointed the Director General of the same department.
Fast track your career from O-levels with eSoft.
කාගෙත් ප්‍රියතම මෙලිබන් බිස්කට් දැන් 30ක් සීනි අඩුවෙන් රස දන්න කාටත්
හරිෂෝ
දරුවන් ගැන ඒ තරම්ම හිතන නිසයි ලංකාවේ අම්මලා විශ්වාසයෙන් මෙලිබන් කිරිම දෙන්නේ.
After O-levels, start your Australian university degree in just 8 months with ACBT's Foundation Program. Enrollments close on 21st October. Call 071 115 1234 for Colombo or 077 011 3223 for Kandy.
While commending Sri Lanka's reforms progress, Managing Director of the International Monetary Fund, Kristalina Georgieva, emphasized that the country's continuity of reforms and adherence to the IMF framework following the change in government has expanded economic opportunities in the country. The IMF Managing Director also assured continued support for Sri Lanka in safeguarding the hard-won gains under the IMF-supported program. The 2024 annual meetings of the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank Group began in Washington, D.C. yesterday. A delegation comprising senior consultant to the President on Economic Affairs and Finance Duminda Hulangamua, Treasury Secretary Mahinda Sirivardana and Central Bank Governor Dr. Nandalal Veerasinghe are representing Sri Lanka at the annual meetings. Speaking at the event marking the commencement of the meetings yesterday, IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said economic opportunities in Sri Lanka are expanding as the country adheres to the IMF framework even after electing a new government.
Sri Lanka, a country that has gone through tremendous turmoil, had democratic elections that brought a new president, a new team, with continuity of reforms to make life better. Inflation down, reserves up, opportunities in the country getting better.
Meanwhile, on the sidelines of the meeting, the IMF Managing Director met with the Sri Lankan delegation and engaged in discussions. Taking to X, IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva stated that she was encouraged by the commitment of the Sri Lankan authorities to continue the reform efforts to safeguard the hard-won gains under the IMF-supported program. She further assures that the IMF remains committed to supporting Sri Lanka build a better future for its people. Meanwhile, President Anura Dissanayake instructed provincial governors to prepare and submit a proposal aimed at standardizing the provincial council mechanism. During a meeting with several provincial governors, the head of state emphasized that people expect a change in Sri Lanka's political culture and added that governors have an important role to play in implementing that change.
President Anura Dissanayake engaged in a discussion with several provincial governors earlier this morning at the Presidential Secretariat.
Since provincial councils are inactive, services rendered by provincial councils must be provided through the intervention of governors. Due to low-level governance mechanisms being inactive, these services are being rendered through the intervention of the central government. This is challenging. You all face the challenge of intervening in day-to-day activities in addition to the usual gubernatorial duties. I believe you are fulfilling this responsibility. A considerable amount of people expect a change in the country's political culture. They expect changes in bribery, corruption, misappropriation of state assets and the behavior of politicians. Although you are governors, you are vested with a semi-political responsibility. People view MPs, ministers and governors as members of the same group. You are vested with an immense responsibility in changing the political culture as expected by society.
During the meeting, President Dissanayake also instructed the governors to prepare and submit a new proposal aimed at standardizing the provincial council mechanism. The discussion also focused on existing vacancies in the health and education sectors under provincial councils, and decisions were made to find viable solutions.
China has made a donation of 30 million rupees as an emergency flood relief assistance to those affected by the recent floods across Sri Lanka. The donation was made by Chinese Ambassador to Sri Lanka, Chi Zhenhong, during a meeting with President Anura Dissanayake at the Presidential Secretariat this afternoon. Discussions during the meeting also focused on long-term flood prevention, management strategies, as well as sustainable approaches to enhance the resilience of communities against future flooding.
Sri Lanka decides 2024.
Sarva Jana Balaya leader Dilith Jayavira asserts that his alliance is attempting to re-establish a political culture based on nationalism, leftist politics and politics of love. Addressing a gathering in Kirindivala, Jayavira went on to say that neither he nor the members of his alliance entered politics in search of financial gain.
A public meeting of Sarva Jana Balaya aimed at the 2024 parliamentary election was held in Kirindivala last evening.
43% of voters cast their votes for the NPP out of hatred and anger. Everyone questioned whether there was any other suitable candidate, and it is a justifiable question. Against a backdrop where the public has been experiencing corruption for an extended period, the people voted for the candidate who pledged to end corruption. His statements are being criticized on social media. None of his statements have a solid basis. Therefore, a need emerged for a new political alliance in the country. Our nationalist politics, leftist politics and politics of love are still needed. This is what we are trying to re-establish. Our politics will make you proud. We did not come into politics to make profits. Meanwhile, Samagi Jana Balawega leader Sajith Premadasa assures that his party will collaborate with President Anura Dissanayake to amend Sri Lanka's agreement with the International Monetary Fund in the best interest of the country if granted a majority in Parliament. Addressing a public meeting, Premadasa said the SJB has already informed the IMF of their intention to amend Sri Lanka's pact with the global lender after securing the mandate of the people.
A public meeting of Samagi Jana Balawega aimed at the 2024 parliamentary election was held today in the Colombo Central Electoral Division.
You can grant Samagi Jana Balawega the majority in Parliament without any fear. Give us your mandate so that we can work in collaboration with President Anura Dissanayake to amend certain conditions in the IMF agreement that are not in the interest of the public. We have already informed the IMF that with the people's mandate, we will enter into a new agreement with them while adhering to the existing IMF framework. We assure you that after we secure a majority in Parliament, Samagi Jana Balawega will be the biggest strength to President Anura Dissanayake in altering the IMF agreement.
Sri Lanka decides 2024.
Former Minister Johnston Fernando's attorneys informed the Court of Appeal that he will appear before the CID tomorrow to provide a statement regarding the unregistered luxury car allegedly belonging to him, which was found parked at a hotel in Colombo. The court was made aware of this development when a petition filed by Johnston Fernando seeking an order to prevent his arrest over the incident was taken up for consideration today. Subsequently, the court ordered the petition to be called for consideration again on the 25th of October. The Commission to investigate allegations of bribery or corruption has received over 3,000 complaints during the first 9 months of this year. The Commission reported that it received a total of 3,045 complaints during the time period spanning from the 1st of January to the 30th of September 2024. The Bribery Commission noted that 81 raids were conducted during that period, which resulted in 67 arrests. Among the arrestees are 45 government officials, including 20 police officers, 3 Gramanildari officers, 3 Kati court judges and 2 revenue inspectors. The number of civilians arrested during the raids is 22. The Commission said 68 persons were prosecuted by the end of September, with 19 defendants being proven guilty. Further, 237 cases related to bribery and corruption are pending before courts, while 56 cases have been resolved. Welcome back. Government has decided to follow international competitive bidding procedures for the purchase of scrap metals collected by the Railway Department and the Transport Board. This initiative aims to help alleviate the scarcity of raw materials for local industrialists by providing them with a steady supply of scrap metal. The decision was granted approval by the Cabinet of Ministers. The Colombo Bourse closed on a mixed note today, with the all-share price index falling while the more liquid S&P SL20 gained. The benchmark all-share index fell 0.08% to settle at 12,300.02 points. Meanwhile, the S&P SL20 climbed 0.11% to end at 3,628.80 points. Turnover crossed 1.9 billion rupees. The capital goods sector was the top contributor to the market turnover, followed by the consumer services sector. Foreign participation in the market activity remained at subdued levels, with foreign investors closing as net buyers, purchasing shares worth 37.9 million rupees. And that's all the news we have for you today. Thank you for joining and have a good night.